welcome to Negative Balance. I'm your host today, Mande, and I'm joined today by
Christian.
Patricia.
T.A.
And today we're going to be discussing the strikes, the rumors about the strikes that might be happening at York University. Last fall, we were all aware of the multiple colleges that had to face a strike, which resulted in students not being able to attend school for the length of around 4 weeks, I believe. And today's questions mostly revolve around how would York University react, considering that we do have a larger faculty compared to a lot of these colleges, and we do have a lot more students attending. So I was curious about you guys' opinion on how would that affect the teachers and especially the students. Christian, if you'd like to start.
Taking Seneca as an example, right? We're on strike for about 4 to 6 weeks. The students are affected both financially and academically, right? Because the whole schedule is pushed back, and most of them have to compensate for the summertime, which is usually when most students want to actually work or have other things planned, right? And that's very unfortunate for them. So I really feel for the students.
Okay. And I was also really curious because although it does affect, this is about the teachers' pay mostly, but we have various organizations at York that don't want the strike to happen because it does affect them academically. And for our older students, some of them who are trying to graduate a little bit earlier on, this is probably going to push back their graduation date and whatnot, because it might push back the exam period, which means that the results get postponed and we don't know who graduates first. But as a first-year student, Patricia,
Yep.
I was curious, would a strike, although it would push back our exam periods and projects and anything that's due, but would it affect you as negatively, in your opinion, as it would for an older student, because consider that you have started?
I feel like it would affect first year students like ourselves to a certain extent. I think it definitely would affect older students a lot more, like you said, about graduation, and just if someone needs to get those credits in during the summertime, because then this semester would be pushed into the summer, and then the summer semester would be pushed even more, right? So it kind of just messes up the whole schedule in general. So I definitely think we would be affected because, for example, I'm looking to do summer courses just so that way I can get ahead next year because I'm looking to do my minor and stuff like that. So I think it would affect me as well, and other people who are trying to do summer courses, because then all of their winter semester courses would be pushed into the summer, right? So I think it's going to have negative effects for everyone on campus, right? Whether it's an organization, a club, the faculty, the students, TAs, I think it's going to be overall a negative impact for everyone. And it's not the first time York's gone on strike either. So it's kind of like you would think that they would kind of figure out from their mistakes before and kind of get their stuff together, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would just settle all that type of stuff without having to jeopardize the students' year even more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And guys, this is to all three of you. Obviously, the strike is about the pay, right, for the teachers and students. In order to get into universities, you already have to pay an enormous sum of money, right? A lot of it goes directly to the university. And do you think that the professors, not the teachers, correction, the professors are in position to complain about their pay? Do they deserve more? Because does more pay mean better quality teaching, in your opinion?
Not just better quality teaching, but I feel it's just more like livelihood for the teachers, right? Because they're the ones also probably still suffering from the school debt, from student loans, right? Some teachers. I had a story of a guy who, actually one of my friends was telling me this. He's one of his professors turned 60, just finished paying off his OSAP debt.
Wow.
Right. So I feel like it's a never-ending battle, with raising pay and all that, because it goes back to the point. I feel like. Do you really feel like there's a permanent solution to that? Because you said it happened before, right?
Yeah, it has, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. It kind of it reminds me of the whole minimum wage situation, right? You can raise it, but I feel like if they raise the tuition, if they raise the salary, it's going to raise the tuition. and it's gonna go back and forth, like ever.
Okay, so that's a very fair point.
I think that like the amount of pay that a teacher the thing is like the professors get a substantial amount of money. It's the TAs that really don't are treated unfairly and unequally in comparison. I think that's what they're fighting more for, is for the TAs rather than the professors themselves. And I've had professors like first semester who the only thing they do is just literally just make a PowerPoint and they just read off the PowerPoint the whole lecture. Like I didn't even have to go because every single thing that prof said was on the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
So I think profs like that who are just kind of, they're used to doing that type of teaching style, and an increased pay is just going to be like, well, now I can buy myself a Lamborghini instead of a Mercedes. You know, like obviously, like I'm exaggerating right now, but it's that like some teachers or profs who actually care about the students and our education, maybe it will make their teaching style better. However, most of them it's just kind of the whole thing of money, and it's kind of, they don't really put into consideration what students have to go through and how much we're actually paying for our education. That's not always even top quality depending on the class.
Wow. That was okay. Yeah.
And also, like, this whole, like, pay situation thing with the whole professors and stuff, it's not just about, like, how much you're being paid, it's also job security as well. Like, if you look at, like, in one of my classes, like, my professor was talking about how, like, he's not tenured, he's basically a contract. Like, he goes, like, from year to year. Like, if he gets a contract, he stays working. But if he doesn't, he has to look for somewhere else to go to work, and that's it. You know, like, for some professors, maybe they're being paid more. That might be because they're tenured, versus the other professors, most of them who are probably contract. So, like, it's not just, like, TAs as well. Don't forget the professors who are contract. They don't have much job security. Like, they're not in there for, like, 5 years or 10 years. They're in there for, like, whatever the contract lasts, personally. And you may be lucky to even have your professor come back next year at all, depending on, like, if they have a contract or not. Which is kind of what I'm trying to say. So, it's not just pay, it's also job security.
Okay. But a lot of these people, like we mentioned, that the people that are mostly being affected are some TAs and professors. But if we talk about the TAs, because a lot of them are PhD students, right? They can later on become professors and get into the job and take the place of the professors that they're currently helping. Do you think that these TAs they go into the job thinking that I'm going to make a lot of money out of this? This is a good job in order to make a lot of money, in order to be able to pay off all the student loans that I'm accumulating from grad school and PhD and everything. So is this the job where people can go in thinking that I'm going to make bank, as they would say, and everything?
Yeah, definitely, especially like a school like York University, because I feel think we just because we go here, right? I think we forget how like big or like how prestigious this institution is, right? So you'd expect that same to be reflected in the paycheck, and I think the motivation about tenure sometimes is misleading, because I think most professors would get comfortable once they got tenure, because really once you got tenure, you cannot be fired for almost anything. And some of the professors have been known to take advantage of that in the past, right? So I kind of see like the advantage of having like a contract as a part of the motivation for for the professor, but then again, like there has to be a balance for everything, like everything in life, right? So I don't know, it's one of those things.
Okay.
I know I was on the bus one day coming to school, and this guy that was on the bus was talking to one of his friends. They both go to York, and one of them was actually a TA for a class. And I was kind of eavesdropping, not gonna lie. But he was talking about basically what kind of perks, I guess you could say, that the TAs gain from being a TA. So instead of them just getting paid flat out, they get a percentage of their tuition covered by the university. So that's one of the incentive to apply to be a TA. And then also they get, a certain amount of money. So I think for them, I don't think they go into it thinking they can make bank. Like, I think they go into it thinking, I can kind of have a little bit of financial stability with them paying part of my tuition for my PhD or my master's, whatever it is. And then in addition to having that kind of little bit extra money, but they also have a whole bunch of work to do as well, right? So they have a lot of work that gets put on them in addition to being a student themselves in a PhD program, right? So I think it's definitely, like I said, harder for the TAs than the profs, but I don't think they go into it with that mindset that they're just gonna make up a whole bunch of money and then just, you know.
Yeah. Yes. So another question that I have for you guys. We all know that minimum wage has gone up in, I think, most provinces. Only in Ontario, I'm pretty sure.
I think it was, just
Only in Ontario, it's gone up to $14 an hour, and for almost every young, or a young person between the ages of 16 and 25. For those who didn't know what that meant, it meant, yay, more money in my pockets. I can do the same amount of work and still get the same amount of money.
Right.
But as students who know a little bit more about how the economy works and what that implies, we are aware that inflation is going to happen, and there might be a little bit more negative effects of this minimum wage increase than there are benefits. And my question was, for let's say the freshman in university who gets a job, and he's trying to make some ends meet, even if they still reside home with their parents, they do gain a little bit of independency because they are in university. And I wanted to know for you guys, from your perspective, with the minimum wage going up, and are there actually more benefits to it, considering that these are students who still have to pay a lot for their tuition, but there's a lot more tax deduction that comes out of it. So I want to know if you guys think that we're actually at win here, we're winning, or is it just the government?
I think we're losing for sure.
Okay.
I don't see how. Obviously, the government is always winning because they decide the rules, right? So it's always their game. Like for example, like the whole thing about expenses, from a personal point of view, is that I work at a fast food place. I'm not gonna mention the name just in case, right? But yeah, and so the thing that happened in December, they raised the prices for most food items on the menu, right?
Yeah.
And before the minimum wage kicked in January, so like they saw this coming, and also around the first of the month, the landlord contacted me saying that for the next lease the rent is gonna get higher. So you can tell that it's gonna it's gonna be back to the same point. It's like a never-ending battle, basically. So I feel like we're always gonna be losing, right? And this ties into one of my favorite quotes from Chris Rock, where it's like minimum wage is just like another way of saying if I could pay you less, I could. Because I think the aim is to find better opportunities that for self-employment or like for where you have actual disposable income, not just necessary, But I understand you can't do that as a student, right?
Right.
But so like first, I guess it works well if you live with your parents. There's a win over there where you can save some of the money, but for other people, I feel like it's a loss.
I think kind of just touching upon what Christian said about the increase in like the inflation. I know my workplace did the same thing in December or end of November, beginning of December. They increased the prices of everything just a little bit by I think between 5 to 20 cents depending on what the item was, and they increased on purpose due to the fact that minimum wage was going to be going up, so that way it wouldn't seem like it was automatic inflation once the minimum wage increase hit. They kind of preempted it, and then they did it on purpose just so that way it didn't look like it was connected. But obviously we know that with an increase in minimum wage comes an increase in inflation, right? And I agree that it's definitely a loss in some aspects because the government will take away more taxes from your paycheck. Although you are getting paid more for the same amount of time that you're putting in, you're still kind of getting that deduction, so the government's obviously still doing what they need to do and taking away what they want to take away. I feel like for freshman students, it is kind of a good thing in a way, the minimum wage increase, because for us, for example, like if for me, I work part-time in addition to going to school full-time. So for me, instead of having to work extra amount to make the amount I'm making now with the minimum wage increase, like I can still work the same amount I was before, but I'm making more money. So for me, I'm living at home too, so I have certain things covered by my parents, and then I contribute to different things, different costs, right? So I think it's good in a way because you don't have to put in extra time to make more money, but it's also definitely has its negative side.
Like, for me personally, like, I work at York as a work-study student, so I kind of know what it's like to be a student and work on campus. And when I asked my, like, boss, like, what was the effect of the whole minimum wage increase, she was like, yes, the minimum wage goes up to you to 14, but she was going to cut my hours because the way the workplace worked was that they had a budget for, like, how much they could afford to pay, like, the work-study students, right? And you see, and that budget wasn't changed when the minimum wage went up. It was the same budget because the budget was planned for the year. They didn't really expect the minimum wage to occur. So when it rose up, basically not only were my hours cut, like, I don't even know if I'm being paid the same or even less because, like, it's great now I'm working more per hour, but if I'm working less hours, it's like, is it really gonna help me? So that's why I'm like in the middle of the whole minimum wage thing. Like, it's great now I can work less hours, but if I don't get paid as much, it's like, is it really helping me in the end?
You guys bring up very good points, and I'm sure that a lot of, York's 50,000 students can share some of your struggles as well. Thank you for joining us, and that concludes this week's episode. Join us next week on Friday for another episode of Negative Balance. Bye.
Wait, I had another point to add.
No, you don't.